So I'm Sarah Norris. I'm the Scholarly Communication Librarian at the University of Central Florida Libraries. I'm joined by my colleagues, Ben Vasca, who's our Engineering and Computer Science Librarian, and Sandy Avila, who's our Science Librarian. And today we're going to talk about the intersection of subject librarians and scholarly communication collaborating to support research and teaching at your campus. And we're going to talk about some of the ways in which we've done that at the University of Central Florida. But first, we'd love to hear from all of you. I'd be curious to hear who you are. Are you a subject librarian? Are you involved in scholarly communication? What other role do you have? And I'm going to hopefully successfully open this poll everywhere, but since we're a small group, we can also maybe have people chime in. I'm going to open my phone and see if the activate needs to happen, because again, technology always fails when you're on these. If it works.
Here's where we're going to go today.
Hopefully should come up. It may be because we're screen sharing. So when technology fails, maybe a few of you chime in what your role is at your library.
Digital scholarship.
Digital scholarship, great.
Collections
librarian.
Science
Collection
librarian.
development.
Science and collection development. Okay, so lots of leveraging and opportunities for collaboration with other people in your libraries. And certainly scholarly communication. To sort of give you a picture of what we do at University of Central Florida, what we thought we would do is give you some context both of the institution as well as our development of the Office of Scholarly Communication, as well as our subject librarian model. So first of all, if you're not as familiar with the University of Central Florida, we are one of 12 public state institutions in the state. We are neighbors to good old Mickey Mouse because we live in the heart of Orlando. We're about 10 miles from downtown. And we're also a really large research institution. We have about 70,000 students, undergraduate, graduates, and at the doctoral level. So we are a heavy research institution, and that certainly plays into the need for strong collaboration between different departments within the library to support our faculty and students. In the context of being a large research institution, we have our scholarly communication unit as well as subject librarians. And scholarly communication at UCF Libraries has really been a very, I would say, iterative process and development. So it's changed a lot and evolved over the years. And collaboration has always been really at the fore of what scholarly communication has been, because it really developed out of the impetus of a scholarly communication task force. This is in 2011. Dr. Penny Wiley led a group of librarians and library staff across various units within the library. One of the goals for this task force was really to give sort of a state of scholarly communication broadly, and then also at the library and the university itself. They were very interested in a sort of an environmental scan, as well as making recommendations on next steps and things that the library could be doing to stay really engaged in ScholarComm. The two takeaways that came from this white paper that they produced was one, we need an institutional repository, and two, we need a ScholarComm librarian or unit related to scholarly communication to support the various efforts on our campus. We didn't have either of those at the time, we now do, which is very exciting. From that white paper, they created sort of a mental model. Has anybody here heard of our research life cycle? Quite a few of you. So the research life cycle came out of this task force, and it's just really a graphic visual representation of how researchers at UCF can get support from not only the library, but other units on campus. So it's a really good way for them to put that in context of the research life cycle. Who do you go to? And many of those services are, of course, the library. Our subject librarians played a really critical role in the development of this research life cycle, as well as the implementation of actual services and resources. So this blue button experts most often are library services that are facilitated by a subject librarian. In the case of citation metrics, Ben here has been the point person, the blue button expert for that. So you can see that subject librarians were really involved and have played that really key role in ScholarComm from the beginning. We also have a scholarly communication working advisory group, and I'll talk a bit about that more in a minute. But I do think that's a really cool and distinct feature that we have at UCF, because the Office of ScholarComm is me, and a part-time adjunct. So it's often, as you all know, staffing can be a challenge, and so doing lots of small-time activities with a mighty office of one, which is what I usually say, couldn't be done without collaboration and strong efforts in the library. So that working advisory group plays a really big role in that. Our unit has a variety of goals, and they come under about 3 different areas. The first is collaboration. That's really key for us, making sure that we're very collaborative interdepartmentally within the library, as well as externally on campus. So we work a lot with various units like the Office of Research, Faculty Excellence. So we really do try to make sure that we're engaged in a high level. We really want to make sure that we also advocate for a variety of things, whether it's general infrastructure or staffing. So we're not a mighty unit of one anymore. Or even things like article processing charges. So we worked collaboratively with our graduate studies department to create a pilot APC fund for our grad students and postdocs. It's something we've worked on for a couple of different years. And then a big piece is education, just making sure that we are educating our researchers on campus about various well-known topics, whether it's open access, predatory and deceptive publishing within that open access realm, and other kinds of things. And our subject librarians play a really strong role in that. And then lastly, our Swapcom Working Advisory Group, which I mentioned. So this is a volunteer group of about 20 to 25 librarians and library staff. They work above and beyond what's their normal job expectations because they're interested and engaged in scholarly communication. We meet monthly to just kind of do reporting, but they also participate in a variety of different projects, whether it's leading Open Access Week, or creating anything else, doing different kinds of, one of the slides here is sort of internal professional development that we came up with this summer, working at graduate orientations, all kinds of different projects they will engage in. So it's a great way for us to do a lot with a small department. And with that, I'm going to turn that over to Ben to talk about how the subject librarian model has evolved.
All right, so you're looking at, this is the knowledge from UCF. And this is, the circular desk is the research and information desk of the library. That's where we work as a reference librarian. So we do have volunteers also from other departments. But that's basically what it looks like when you come in the library. So traditionally, before 2012, before any of this thing happens, we are a traditional reference department. Like most of you are probably familiar with. You are working at the reference desk 16 to 20 hours a week, right? You don't have any specific assignments in terms of collection development. Sometimes you're given what's available. So your expertise may be in the sciences, but the only thing available is engineering. So you may have to take it no matter what, just to have the experience or just to fill in the gap. So we do provide lots of library instruction. Back then, when you do a lot of like Comp 1, Comp 2, speech, and all those things, it doesn't really matter. You get to teach those classes. You get to teach as many as 50, or depending how many is available at that time. Even areas that are not in your field. So if your topic, if you're, let's say, in theater and you are the science librarian, and the science librarian is out for the day or in a conference or sick, then you may have to step in and become the instructor for that class. And something that we cannot get out of is working nights and weekends. You know, that's something that, you know, part of the job assignment is when they hire you, well, you will be working a particular night. And you may be on rotation for weekends. And so that's not something that you can avoid, so you basically take it in. And then it all changed in 2013. We have a new head of research and information services that we hired, and that's when we started the new subject librarian model. And it's built upon the positive impact that we already did in terms of student learning, faculty reaching, research, ScholarCom, and all the other types of outreach that we do. So in that way, as an expected outcome, we have to be visible on campus, not just being in our offices, so we have to be out there. And in addition, that will lead also to being visible and accessible, available in, you know, in terms of like presentations and committee boards and invited speaking engagements in all areas like local, state, international, those events. So initially, like what Sarah said, there really is no ScholarCom librarian. But there is a department back then, and that was headed by the Associate Director for Public Services and something else. She and the head of Research and Information Services department, along with the head of collection management, got together and decided that it's time to move on and change our role instead of the traditional, become more of a subject librarian. So with that, we collaboratively work with our assigned areas effectively, so that each librarian has an expert, is an expert on that field, and we work with all the other areas or colleges or department that we're assigned to. That way, it maximizes the impact in terms of collaboration, in terms of teaching, in terms of outreach, in terms of all those things. So with that, suddenly we are becoming more proactive. We no longer sit on our desk and just wait for requests for instructions or other things. We have to be proactive with our constituency. So it's not just simply the departments, but other areas also that supports collection development, with research, with learning and research. Everything that we kind of sort of like assigned to be more proactive way. And as that, we are encouraged to provide practical assistance in terms of, the SCOL communication topics. And at that time, there was no SCOL librarian. So we had to have the basic understanding on copyright, author rights, research impacts, and all those things. So everybody should have the basic knowledge on all those areas. And we have to do some profiling of our academic units that know about their mission, their goals, not just simply, like I said, becoming more proactive. You have to know more about what's going on in those departments. So you have to look at the department's website, the research that the faculty just receive, anything that would lead you to helping those departments. That also involves profiling your faculty, and that's knowing exactly the kind of grants that they receive, the classes they're teaching, the publications they publish, all the teaching assignments that they would require us to be part of. In addition to that, we do a lot of curriculum mapping. It's much easier when you look over the catalog and identify courses that says research methods, right? So it's a given. But then you also have to look at some other courses by going through the catalog and identifying which of those courses have some research component. Once you identify all those things, then you go into finding out, what classes are being offered that semester, who are the instructors teaching those courses, and then reaching out to those faculty members, because now this is the time for you to be out there and start helping the students and the faculty. And so basically our role has expanded. I mean, nothing's changed, the salary is the same, more responsibilities, more work to do, but we have to be more proactive. So we're becoming more mobile. We get to go to the different departments. We get to visit their offices, new faculty orientations. We get to their track, because now we know who the new faculties are. So we get to go reach out and provide, just ask for maybe a meeting with them to talk about the resources that we can provide them. Most faculty members who are who's been doing a lot of things may be using the same databases or resources, but they probably know that there are other things also that they can use for their research. And a lot more outreach in terms of newsletters, in terms of emailing, in terms of workshops, and we even talk about that also as part of this presentation.
All right. So a quick check-in. How many of you have, raise your right hand if you have a scholarly communication librarian at your campus? Okay, so keep your hands up, and then what about the subject librarian? Well, I want to see both, because I want to talk about collaboration, so, okay. So some of you.
So if you have both those things.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm going to get into the part of how we all started working together. So you've got a history about UCF, got a little bit of history about our subject library model, and now where does it become this collaboration? So we started last year in October with a very highly successful presentation to our faculty on hijacked journals, kind of giving them the history about open access, the fact that they're not all predatory. And it was widely successful. It was the three of us, our first time working together and kind of targeting a specific hot topic. And it was actually very interesting to see some of the things that came out of that. So these are 4 of our slides that actually came out of our presentation. So the first one there is actually talking about open access, kind of demystifying some of the wrongs about it. And actually at this session, we have STEM librarians, right? The science librarian myself, and then the computer science and engineering librarian, and then the scholar communication. We targeted all of the faculty at UCF, so we had a broad range of faculty who came that were just disciplinary STEM faculty. But it was kind of interesting some of the things that we learned by the end of our session. There were many faculty members who were kind of hesitant about having shown up to our session, which is kind of weird. It's like, we didn't make you come, you showed up, but they were kind of argumentative a little bit with us, so it was kind of interesting playing back and forth with that open access. They're not all predatory, what's gold, what's green, what's all the different, we actually learned some things at that session. We also talked about how to identify predatory publishers, or perhaps predatory publishing is a very persuasive way of looking at it. They're not all necessarily predatory, but just having that discussion with our faculty. And having spoken a little bit about what happens if you have published in one of these, which we did end up having a faculty member in psychology, was it? And he was actually the person who was very argumentative with us, which was kind of strange. At the very end, he came up to Sarah like at a different moment and was like, I'm a victim, what do I do? So we covered that in our session. So faculty understood what are some of the repercussions, how can they perhaps try to go back and salvage their name. And then we talked a little bit about predatory publishing at UCF, some of the things that we wanted to do in our next collaboration, which was to actually present a poster at the Science Technology section of the American Library Association, their call for posters. So Ben and I did I know it's kind of hard to see it, it's kind of like a film noir poster that we put together, but the title is To Catch a Predatory Publisher, a survey of STEM faculty at the University of Central Florida. What we did is we took Web of Science and we looked at certain journals that were on the list, and then we took our faculty from the colleges towards the middle, which is basically College of Engineering and Computer Science, the College of Optics and Photonics, and the College of Sciences, which are the 3 colleges that the 2 of us serve. And with our initial analysis, we're lucky that UCF and the STEM people did not have any issues, but we did realize that in the future we would like to work more closely with our scholar communication librarian, and that's where that line is showing down, saying these are our new things that we'd like to do in the future, is working a little bit more tangibly with Office of Scholar Communication to develop additional workshops, do some targeted events to faculty and to students, and to see if we can kind of grow this collaboration. So I'm going to get into some strategies for how you all who had both your hands up can collaborate with your departments, and perhaps some ideas that you might not have thought of, and then we're going to get into some student and faculty examples. So first thing is that discipline-specific teams like ourselves, we kind of, we didn't just grow organically together. We actually had to get out of our offices and talk to each other, saying, hey, what are you doing for computer science? Do you have any new things that are kind of bridging over, like a lot of virtual reality type stuff, or things happening in predatory publishing? How can we get other people involved? And so naturally, it made sense that the 3 of us would work together eventually, but it didn't make sense at the beginning. So looking at those discipline-specific teams, it might not be STEM related for you. It could be social science, it could be entrepreneurship. So it just depends on the teams that you might have that are discipline-specific for you to consider partnering with. Second is looking at faculty interest. What are, I think Ben mentioned it before, what are some of the grants that are coming out of your institution? What are some of the trends that are happening? What makes your institution sparkle or shine amongst everybody else? How can you start raising some of those concerns with faculty and students and creating this outreach and programming targeted to those areas? Also, consider working with different departments like acquisitions or electronic resources. We're learning about lots of different models and publishing and things that are happening that are actually leading some new discussions and some new workshops that we'd like to put together for students and faculty. So working with other departments to see what other trends are going on is also a good strategy to take. And lastly, our digital initiatives team, which we didn't have prior to 2012, put together an institutional repository. So working with them as well, if you have one, to consider ways that you can get faculty and students to upload things to your IR, and just in general looking at ideas of how that can work. Okay, so some collaborative examples. We're going to start with the student-focused ones. I break this down into 3 groups. So the first one's going to be research consultation referrals. This is basically when each one of us as subject librarians sits down with students to work on any particular research question or query or need. And typically what happens is when we go through that process, something comes up, which I actually just did in a research consultation I had with a chemistry student who's an honors in a major, pre-medical, biomedical double major. And he's like, I want to publish, or use this image from a certain journal. He's like, what do I have to do with this? And you have to get the rights from that particular journal. How do I do that? I know someone you can talk to. So, having that referral and letting people know that I'm not the expert in that area. There's a few steps, but I know somebody who can really walk you through that. So doing those referrals when we're in a session, that goes across all three ways. It might start with Sarah, and then you might want to go talk to your science librarian, or it starts with Jen, so you might want to talk to Sarah. We do the referrals across the collaboration. And mentioning our online resources from the Office of Scholarly Communication or from just our research guides, actually using some of the stuff we already got in place to share those referrals. So a takeaway from that is that we realize that there is a real need to actually collaborate and to work together, because obviously students need it and they're asking questions. The challenges are that students don't want to have to come back 3 times. They're like, well, why can't you do everything? Well, because I'm not an expert in everything. I can be barely an expert in the 7 subject areas I handle. So getting them to understand they have to come back and talk to different people can be challenging. But one of the successes is that definitely we network, we're growing our programming, and we're really realizing that it's important to collaborate. So the next example is going to be, in general, just library programming and joint instruction. And this is basically when we do events like our welcome event for graduate students that are international students. We do a special event. This is the second year we held it. The international students especially love this because they get to talk about their home countries, they get to come in and find people, but they get to connect with all of the important resources. Their scholarly communication person, their particular subject librarian, and they get a chance to kind of be welcomed into the United States through the library's point of view. So we do a targeted session where each of us are going to talk about a different topic in our area, and then as well, again, sharing our collaborative nature. We've done this also for our graduate workshops, which we cover areas in copyright, author rights, literature review, citation metrics, and mobile apps for research. The takeaways again is that working together is a necessity. It's being something that's highly requested and has been very valuable. As well, challenges, is that we can't all be in the same place a lot of times at the same time, so it's kind of hard to coordinate schedules and to get us all in the same place together, especially if we're doing sessions over and over, year to year. But again, it's making us realize that it's such an important thing, because now we're getting asked to do targeted STEM, called STEM Prime at UCF. It's a group that comes out of the TRIOS program that helps first-time students into college and a couple other disabilities and things like this. So now we're actually being asked to do some of those collaborative talks at those groups, as well as with student organizations. I've been working now with the SEDS group, which is Planetary Sciences, Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. So now they're asking us to come and do specific workshops just for their 100 student organization meetings, which is really exciting. And lastly, on the student examples, we've got just our workshops. We just started this fall, the STEM Bootcamp, Research Data and Tools. We're finally jumping into the data management kind of programming. We held our first session last month. We're doing one in a couple weeks, and we get back, and then we're doing 2 in the spring. We're covering the 4 ideas here of lit reviews, data management, citation metrics, and data visualization. And these are things that a lot of universities are hiring researchers for to actually come in and do the job in the library. So we are now starting to do that. Really, we should have 4 librarians just covering those areas, but even though we're a large school, we're underfunded in terms of the numbers of librarians to students. But we're having really good success in terms of getting input and getting RSVPs and interest in these topics. Takeaways, it's very hard to plan these kinds of multiple event workshops, so making sure you take plenty of time to get everything ready. Challenges is that you want to make sure you remind your students, send out RSVPs early, and the successes are that these are being very well received, and we're still, of course, planning them because we have 2 in the spring, but developing and expanding these ideas for future is going to be one of the things we'll take away.
And moreover,
So sort of looking at faculty-focused collaboration. So I'm going to cover 3 different areas, just like Sandy covered 3 different areas for student-focused. The first is very much like our students, where we get queries or one-on-one appointments from our faculty, and those come in a variety of different ways. Certainly, our subject librarians are often the point people for a question from a faculty member, and as Sandy said, with students, they'll usually either refer to me, or if it comes to me directly, then I will also try to make sure that I keep those subject librarians in the loop, just to keep good communication and also to make sure that we're not missing anything and we're supporting our faculty in the best ways possible. So it is very iterative, and certainly how we work with faculty on any one-on-one or faculty questions really varies, whether we meet together as a group. I know Sandy mentioned scheduling can be a challenge, so we do try to do that as well, so it's very much the same way. But we do know that the more that we work together collaboratively, the better support we give our faculty and the more comprehensive support we're giving our faculty. So that's a really important starting point. Just like students, it can be challenging to explain to a faculty member that Sandy or Ben may not be the one-stop shop for their copyright questions or other kinds of components. And so sometimes it might take a couple of emails or a meeting where we do almost like a reference interview where you thought the meeting was one thing and about 10 minutes in you go, well, that was not what we were planning on meeting about. And then it turns into, hey, we need to pull the ScholarCom librarian in, or I might say, let's get Sandy or Ben to come in and chat with you about some of the support as well. So it's always sort of keeping each other in the loop and make sure that we support those faculty in the appropriate ways. But the great success from this has been we've had a lot of increased opportunities. We do not sometimes need to be as proactive because our names are out there. They know that we can provide those services, so we're getting a lot more requests. I did my statistics for our annual report this last year, and the requests that we've had related to subject librarians and faculty has gone up almost double just in a year. So we're definitely getting the word out there about the collaborative nature. And of course, another big piece with our faculty is making sure we connect with them at their college and department meetings as well, whether it's talking about open access or copyright or other kinds of scholarly communication topics. Those invariably do come up in a variety of different ways. The invitations come in a lot of different ways as well. Sometimes it'll be a faculty member saying, hey, I saw you do this presentation on open access. Can you come talk to my department about that? That would be great. And I say, yes, let me talk to your subject librarian too, so that they're in the loop and they can also attend if possible. But our subject librarians do typically facilitate an invitation to a department, so oftentimes they're getting the invitation and they say, hey, let's pull in Sarah to talk about that particular topic, whether it's open access or article processing charges or any of those other things as well. But it can be a challenge because sometimes those meeting invitations are both precious and limited. So a lot of times it's, hey, you have 5 minutes, go. Right? Like you have that very much time to talk about it. And so it doesn't always make sense for me to go as a ScholarCom librarian. Oftentimes the subject librarian is going and we're chatting beforehand so that I can help support them in the best way possible. So they feel really comfortable and confident going in to talk to faculty about a particular topic that they might not be as much of an expert in. So we do it in a variety of different ways. The takeaway, just like questions, the more we collaborate, the stronger the support is for our faculty, and especially college and departments. I did mention again, it can be a challenge to get into those meetings, so we always want to take those and make sure we're using them in the best way possible. But because we've been doing a lot more of them and a lot more STEM outreach, we're certainly seeing a lot more of our STEM departments requesting us to come in and talk on a variety of topics. So they are coming in, lots of them fast and furious, which has been really great to see. And then lastly, sort of bringing it all back from the beginning, sort of the impetus for our collaboration with this predatory publishing, we did this workshop, so what's come afterwards? Putting it all together. So we did this workshop, we had a great attendance, lots of good feedback, lots of folks from a variety of different colleges and departments attended, including faculty members from nursing, as well as the Center for Distributed Learning, which are our instructional designers on campus. And so all of them said, hey, this was really great. Could you review this for our department too? So in that case, I moved beyond just sort of the STEM focus and then worked with the nursing subject librarian, and we coordinated doing a workshop for the nursing faculty as well. So pulling in some other subject librarians to do additional workshops on predatory publishing. We also have been invited to speak at a lot of college and department meetings, STEM in particular. So everything was really cyclical. We did the predatory publishing workshop. Then one of the faculty members who attended that workshop said, hey, can you come talk to the College of Sciences deans and chairs on this? This would be really helpful. And we said, sure, yeah, that'd be great. So I was able to go talk to them. One of the faculty members who was a dean and chair who was at that meeting said, could you redo this for stats too? So we sort of got 3 things out of one particular workshop. And then because we've been collaborating a lot more, we're seeing a lot more broader things that we can do. So Sandy and Ben are both very engaged at the national level in a variety of different committees. Sandy's on the Science and Technology section, ACRL committee, it's like more or less ALA. And so she was working on the Hot Topics Planning Committee for Midwinter. Turned out their topic was on predatory publishing and said, hey, I know somebody who might be a great speaker for that. And so I ended up speaking at the conference on that as well. So we're getting to collaborate in other unique professional ways as well. And then again, we're getting lots more interest to keep doing this workshop in lots of different ways. So I think the biggest takeaway from us was open access, predatory publishing has become extremely a hot topic on campus. So our faculty really want to talk about this, and they really want support, and they really want to have information. So we're getting a lot more of that. So that's been a great opportunity for us. The challenge is, how do you get them to get the information? You might have a workshop, 2 people might show up, right? That's the nature of it. You might have a college and department meeting, but they might be really amped up about something that's coming along in their department, so they're not really interested for you talking for 5 minutes about open access. So what's the best strategies to reach out to them? And I think we're still kind of trying to figure that out. And also, a lot of small comm topics need some background. If you're doing a workshop on predatory publishing, not every faculty member is as familiar with open access publishing. You have to give a lot more context. So it takes some planning and foresight into those particular things. And then, of course, successes, we're just doing a lot more. We're collaborating a lot more, we're getting lots more requests and lots more opportunities, which is pretty fantastic.
I think you just have a couple slides of pictures. So these are some of the things we did at the Welcome to International Students, some of the other workshops we have with our different presenters. In the next slide, we have some more different things that we've done and presented at different other conferences in collaboration, the 3 of us. And then some next steps, just so you can know some of the things that we're doing at UCF. We are working with some of our vendors to do some additional faculty outreach. One of the things that we're working on with the American Chemical Society in particular is having them come to do an ACS on campus event where they come to talk a little bit about just in particular the chemistry, material science people as well as our chemistry people to discuss kind of like what are some of the ways that they can get into publishing with open access journals with their particular resources. Web of Science doing a workshop with Publons, helping faculty understand a little bit more about what that's about. Again, with our collaboration together, broader discussions about the read and publish model. We've had a few vendors now coming to us with this option, making sure we understand and talking again with our electronic resources people, our acquisitions people, kind of discussing some of the ways that we can bring this to our faculty, as well as doing some tag team on location office hours between like a scholar communication and a subject librarian, setting up shop in the physics building and kind of just saying, hey, the librarians are in, come and talk to us, and kind of tag teaming that as opposed to just doing a traditional on location type of subject librarian office hour.
So the next slide is what rabbit hole will you fall into? So it's just, we would like to ask you, of course it's not working, so what do you hope to explore at your institution? And since we're not going to have that poll,
Anybody want to share?
I don't feel like it's a rabbit hole, but the question I have really going into this, which I'm hearing a little bit, I kind of want to get more and more detail, is where do you draw a line between questions that subject librarians can feel complete authority to answer, no need to refer, and things that, and I know it always depends, but like I think that as we're finding more institutions willing to take on a kind of copyright consultants model, like this is part of your job, this is part of things that you can answer. Where do you draw the line between things that you can answer and things that you really need to refer? And I feel like that is a work in progress, but I'd love to hear like maybe some examples of how you managed that.
Yeah, that's a great question, and something that I struggled with when I came on as a small town librarian, because I wanted to make sure that I respected our subject librarians, and their expertise as well as comfort level. Some of our subject librarians are super on it with copyright and feel really comfortable and know what they're talking about. Other people maybe not so much, same with open access and other types of things. So the first thing that I did when I came on was I actually met with every single subject librarian and just talked through what's your comfort level and sort of laid the groundwork for how can I best support you. Is it if a question comes up, you want to deal directly with your faculty and you just want to kind of on the back end get a hold of me and I can support you, I can definitely do that. Or if you just feel totally out of your comfort zone and you want to refer it on to me, you can do that. So we kind of laid a lot of that out first thing when I got there, just because I wanted to get a good support from them. And that has worked really well. The other thing that I've also really worked hard on, and this was something that I tried to do as an environmental scan, was what can I do in the library to make you feel like you have support for various topics? Because again, everybody has comfort levels of how much they know or want to know about something. So we do a lot of internal professional development. One of the slides, we had a photo, we did a whole series this summer called Camp Compass. And it was a summer camp theme because we know everybody's busy in the summer, we made it fun. But it was all about things like metrics. It was all, okay, we're gonna order acronyms, copyright, open access, metrics, publishing, but it was all sorts of different topics. And so we gave them slide decks so that they could use them if they wanted to go talk to their faculty. So say Ben wants to talk to his faculty member about open access, he can download that slide deck, and so we have some consistency in what we provide faculty. And then also he doesn't feel like he has to reinvent the wheel and go do a ton of research. And then he and I can meet beforehand too. So we've done a lot of slide decks, a lot of professional development internally to provide people training. And then if somebody feels, again, like they're not comfortable, then they can always reach out as well. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, it does, thank you.
And we have Camp Compasses available in our institutional repository if you ever want to see the fun stuff. But yeah, I think professional development is very helpful for faculty.
Anything else?
So I had our campus of my institution, we've pretty much done everything you guys have done, which is fantastic to hear. But one area as a subject librarian that I sometimes struggle with is I am also responsible for pulling citation metrics for tenured promotion packages, and sometimes I do come across predatory publishers. And I have never broached the subject by saying back to that committee that is evaluating that faculty member, while some of the places that they are being evaluated on are not so great. And what role do we have in not only educating but also informing in some contexts where that might actually be happening? And I don't know if you have any experience with that.
We've got a couple of things. So funnily enough, I'm on the research council for UCF, and we were just having this conversation. The chair of the committee said, this predatory publishing is a thing, and it's really scary to me, and how do we deal with this with P&T, and how do we support our faculty and make sure that they're not getting into it. And so the provost for the Office of Research is actually looking for the library to provide some direct support and guidelines to each specific department. That's new, so we're starting to work on that right now. What I'm hoping to do is engage the subject librarians to help provide some discipline-specific support in terms of journals, but also broad open access predatory publishing and credible publishing. And we've really been trying to switch the perception of every open access journal is bad and giving them some strategies to set them up for success so they don't go down the road of publishing in a thing that's not going to be great for P&T. So I don't know if that's a great sort of comprehensive answer, but something that we're struggling with too.
I know that Cabell is not a comprehensive resource, but is that one of the resources that you might bring into the conversation in terms of, tools that they can use?
Yeah, DOAJ, OASPA for open access enforcement bells, JCR, there's a variety of different tools we would probably use. For us, it's a challenge because right now our Cabell subscription is only for the College of Education because of funding. So those can be a challenge. So I think thinking creatively is good too. And resources like something like a Think, Check, Submit, where it's less about the actual resource and more about giving them supportive strategies to make good decisions professionally before you get to that. But Cabell's is a great suggestion.
Hi, thanks for putting this together. I'm actually not at the library, I'm at the University of Tennessee, and I support the School of Information Sciences. And I wanted to actually share with you all that we're actually just received an IMLS grant to educate a new class of master's students in information sciences in science liaison librarianship specifically, creating new coursework and really bringing in the data management piece and specifically how to support the research community. We're in Knoxville and we're right next door to the National Lab and we have a lot of partnerships and also looking towards how we can place information professionals in that space of supporting those research organizations outside the university as well. We're recruiting, by the way, so if anyone knows anyone with undergraduate or master's degrees in the sciences, it's a great way to sort of help move this along. And obviously, we're informed by this trend of subject librarians shifting their roles and this happening all over the place and trying to address the skills and the needs of, to help move things forward. So thank all of you, and hopefully we can support your libraries.
That's great. Thank you. Any other questions?
It's the perennial question, maybe not for you all, but certainly our institution, what did you give up? Because you're doing so much.
Yeah.
Where were you able to say, this is not as important as this new thing that we're doing? Or what was your strategy for saying?
First thing we do about the desk hours.
Of course. Did you really?
Yes, we have to drop, like, some of us are just doing 4 to 6 hours a week on the desk and stuff.
Who fills that space now? Are there different
We
staff?
hire adjuncts. And those are adjuncts with MLS degrees also, so and they're either working part-time or they have other full-time jobs and working nights and on weekends. So it's easy to find people who want to work those hours. But as far as learning all those things, like when you said something about metrics, well, because of the button experts, we have people who actually can guide each of the subject librarians if they need something. So if they need something about metrics, citation analysis, things, then they most likely would come to me and assist their faculty.
Yes, I'll tell you one other thing that goes, working on collection development, because we have to purchase items and keep up with that. So I know for me, that ends up being something I have to cram in at the very end of the year, to be honest, I don't know about you, Ben. That's me at the end of the year.
Well, one thing good about the engineering discipline and computer science and all the nanoscience, they're expensive. So if I have $1,000, then I can only spend it for 5 books. I'm done.
I have 7 departments, I have a lot of money in 7 departments, and they're all different, so, yeah. That's the thing that goes for me, in terms of time.
This is a follow-up question, because you are in terms of student demographics, you are the largest in the U.S., right?
I don't know, I've been hearing that now, I don't know if that's been updated for
Yeah,
this year. Is that?
For a while, I heard we were second or third.
Yeah.
But now I think we made it definitely.
I don't know, I heard students at the UCF game last weekend talking about that, and I'm like, do I need to write that? I don't know, it's like, let me just be quiet.
At least it's been around,
Something I
it's
don't-
been out there for a long time. USF has a huge student population. I just wondered, like, because you were talking about your staffing, and I just assumed that you must have like a huge, but like how many like librarians
We have 12.
library professionals?
In our IRS department, we have like 12.
Wow.
Then how many students do you have?
About 11,000 students in engineering.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, we always compare ourselves with our colleagues, USF and UF, FSU. When we envy them so much that, UF has 5 engineering librarians, and I'm the only one at UCF, and we're a bigger school.
Yeah.
And then FSU has 3, and I'm, so, but that's the nature of the job.
And
Yeah.
that's why we collaborate, we work together to try to tag team some of the things that we can maybe perhaps get to a larger audience and a larger number of students and faculty with less work.
And that's why I say even this Office of Scholarly Communication, I'm like, because I'm just one person,
Yeah.
having that scholarly communication working advisory group, we can do so much more with those folks taking on different projects. So we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to do nearly as much as we do.
And you have to be a backup also for some other disciplines too. So if she's not around, then I might take some of the students, or if the patents, trademarks librarian is not around, if you have some knowledge or expertise in that area, then you understand more. So whenever our participants in a conference are gone, then they usually have a backup person to assist because we're a depository.
I think you guys should advocate for more money. Especially, I mean, that was like, it just blows my mind because, you know, we're just a little tiny library. I'm from Gulf Coast University and we have, and of course Sandy and I know each other, but we have 14,000 students and our, you know, we have probably the same amount of librarians, like, so I always think that we are small, but you guys have a very, you know, small, for what you're doing, like, you could even show, like, the public librarians are doing, like, the metrics, like, $1, you're getting this much, and, you know, like, what they're getting a big bang for buck, right, guys? So, I don't know, but I thought it was interesting, I like how you started out your presentation too, talking about those staffing challenges and how you were able to meet those by working together. Because some, you know, some departments don't really they don't really see those connections. So I think that is really successful that you could get out of your silos and really work together.
Yeah. We definitely enjoy that, and I think we're a highly collaborative library across all the things, not just telecommunications and libraries, so yeah, it works really well.
So our presentation will be available later on, so the PowerPoint will be available, so we put them up and submit them. How many of you like the images?
It's fascinating.
So many,
My
yeah.
favorite was fighting hedgehogs.
Yes. Pixabay for public domain images, so.
And everything
Lots
will
of
be
great stuff.
listed also in the PowerPoint,
Yeah.
so all the images that we use, there is a link, there's a
Yeah.
link to the comment.
Well, thank you all so much for your attention, for coming, for your questions. And certainly,